How long do you think this will take you to win this war?
You're talking about something that related to many factors. The most important factors, how long are the supporters of those terrorists are going to keep supporting them, especially Turkey and Qatar and Saudi Arabia, with the endorsement of some Western country, including the United States. If you don't have that support, it won't take more than a few months.
More than a few months.
Yeah.
You see, I've been here 10 times and I've heard your governors say it will take a month to retake Homs, it will take 6 months to retake somewhere else. It always takes longer than that. So realistically, this will take years, won't it?
That's why I said that depends on how much support the terrorists are going to have. How much recruitment are you going to have in Turkey with the Saudi money to have more terrorists coming to Syria? Their aim is to prolong the war. So they can prolong it if they want. And they've already succeeded in that. So that depends on the question. If you're talking about how much it's going to take as only Syrian conflict, isolated conflict, this is where it won't take more than a few months regarding this.
And you're not worried in the least about Secretary Kerry meeting Vladimir Putin and coming to an understanding in which you may have to leave power?
No, for one reason, because their politics, I mean the Russian politics, is not based on making deals. It's based on values. And that's why you don't see any achievement between them and the American, because different principles. The American politics based on making deals regardless of the values, which is not the case for the Russian.
But of course, it's not just Russia that's bombing your enemies, it's the United States. Do you welcome American airstrikes against ISIS?
No, because it's not legal. First of all, it's not legal.
It's not legal for Russia to do it, is it?
No, they are invited legally and formally by the Syrian government. It's the right of any government to invite any other country to help in any issue. So they are legal in Syria, while the Americans are not legal with their allies. Of course, all of them are not legal. This is first. Second, since the Russian intervention, the terrorism has been, let's say, regressing, while before that, and during the American illegal intervention with their allies, ISIS was expanding, and the terrorism was expanding and taking over new areas in Syria. They're not serious. So I cannot say I welcome the unseriousness and to be in Syria illegal.
Thousands of missions, hundreds of airstrikes. The United States is not being serious?
The question is not how many strikes, what the achievement, that's the question. The reality is telling that since the beginning of the American airstrikes, the terrorism has been expanding and prevailing, not vice versa. It's only shrinked when the Russians intervened. So this is reality. We have to talk about facts. It's not only about the pro forma action that they've been taking.
So American airstrikes are ineffective and counterproductive?
Yes, it is counterproductive in somehow. When the terrorism is growing, it is counterproductive. That's correct.
Whose fault is that? Is that a military fault, or is President Obama simply not being, let's say, ruthless enough?
Yeah. No, first of all, it's not about being ruthless. It's about being genuine. It's about the real intentions. It's about being serious. It's about having the will. The United States doesn't have the will to defeat the terrorists. It had the will to control them and to use them as a card like they did in Afghanistan. That will reflected on the military aspect of the issue. If you want to compare more than 120 or 30 Russians airstrike in few areas in Syria compared to 10 or 12 American allies airstrikes in Syria and Iraq, it means militarily nothing. But that military ineffectiveness is a reflection of the political will.
Do you feel the United States has fundamentally misunderstood your war with ISIS, with what you might call a common enemy?
Again, it's not common enemy, because for us we are genuine in fighting not only ISIS and al-Nusra and every affiliated to Al-Qaeda organization within Syria. They have the same, all of them are terrorists. So if you want to talk not about ISIS, about the terrorist groups, we wanted to get rid of the terrorists, we wanted to defeat those terrorists, while the United States wanted to manage those groups in order to topple the government in Syria. So you cannot talk about common interests unless they really want to fight those terrorists and to defeat them. And they didn't do that. They've been in Iraq in 2006. They didn't try to defeat them.
But America is very genuine about fighting ISIS. ISIS is a threat to the American homeland. How can you say America is not serious about fighting ISIS?
ISIS has been set up in Iraq in 2006 while the United States was in Iraq, not Syria was in Iraq. So it was growing under the supervision of the American authority in Iraq, and they didn't do anything to fight ISIS at that time. So why to fight it now? And they don't fight it now. It's been expanding under the supervision of the American airplanes. And they could have seen the ISIS using the oil field and exporting oil to Turkey, and they didn't try to attack any convoy of ISIS. How could they be against ISIS? They cannot see, they don't see. How the Russians could have seen it from the first day and started attacking those convoys. Actually, the Russian intervention unmasked the American intentions regarding ISIS and the other terrorist groups, of course. Actually, for the American administration, since the Second World War, they have a share in stoking the fire and conflicts in every part of this world. And as the time goes by, those administrations are becoming more and more pyromaniac. The difference now between those administrations is only about the mean, not about the goal. One of them sent his own troops, like Bush. The other one is using surrogate mercenaries. The third one using proxy, and so on. But the core is the same. Nothing has changed.
Do you welcome the end of President Obama's term of office?
It means nothing for us, because if you change administration but you change politics, it means nothing. So it's about the politics. And in Syria, we never bet on any president coming or any president going. We never bet, because what they say in their campaign is different from what they practice after they became elected.
But the reason people are saying you should face a war crimes tribunal is that you are clearly using any means whatsoever. I mean, I know you don't agree that there is such a thing as a barrel bomb. Yeah. Never mind the metal. The charge is that you are using indiscriminate force, indiscriminate weapons in civilian areas. That's true, isn't it?
First of all, those people, do they have any criteria that what they mean that you should use with the terrorists? They don't have. So this is irrelevant. It has no meaning from legal point of view and from realistic point of view. Second, if you talk about indiscriminate, no army would use indiscriminate armament in such a situation where there's nearly intermingle between the two sides.
With respect, Mr. President, I've seen a bomb thrown from a helicopter. That was indiscriminate.
Let's say technically, this is not the issue, whether to throw it from helicopter or from aircraft. This is not the issue. The more important thing, if you want to talk about precise, let's say we are using precise armament like the United States, using the drones and the highest precision missiles in Afghanistan. How many terrorists they've killed so far? They've killed many folds of civilians and innocents.
Even if that's true, that doesn't make anything that you do right.
No. I mean, first of all, the kind of armament that you are using is not related to what you've mentioned. It's not whether you use the high precision or less precise armament. There's no such criteria. This is only part of the media campaign recently. I'm talking now legally. So we have the right.
With respect, it's not just a media campaign. The United Nations, as you well know, has spoken about this. Human rights groups have spoken about this. Not just indiscriminate use of weapons against civilians, but the UN spoke this week about the problems in Aleppo, in Daraya, which is just very close to here, of the use of starvation as a weapon of war. Sieges. That's going on right now, close to us, isn't it?
We're going to talk about the siege. Now, regarding the armament, the only thing that the government cannot use in any war is the armament that's been banned by the international law. Any other armament that you've been using against the terrorism, it's your right. So it's our right to use any armament to defeat the terrorists.
And you know there's a charge that you have used chemical weapons, which you deny.
We didn't. So far, it's been 3 years, no one had offered any evidence regarding this, only allegations.
There's plenty of evidence, but you reject them.
No, there's no evidence actually, only pictures on the internet.
Photographic, scientific, eyewitness?
Nothing. You have delegation coming from the International Organization of Chemical Weapons. They came to Syria and they didn't have any evidence. They went, they collected everything, samples and everything to offer evidence. They couldn't. There's no evidence. So we didn't use it. And there's no logic in using it.
Let's talk about the methods your forces are using close to here, which is cutting off an area and besieging it. And there are thousands of civilians very close to here who are starving.
Yeah.
Do you recognize that?
Let's presume you are saying what you're saying is correct. Let's presume that. Now you're talking about encircled or besieged by the army for years now, not for a month, for years. They don't have food and every basics because the government doesn't allow them. But at the same time, they've been fighting for 2 years and they've been shelling us with mortars and killing civilians from their area. It means, according to this narrative, that we are allowing them to have armaments, but we don't allow them to have foods.
Well,
is that realistic?
That's what the UN says. The UN says, for example, in Madaya, it's only managed to get 4 aid convoys in all these years.
How do we prevent them from having food and we don't prevent them from having armaments to kill us? What's the logic in this? This is contradiction. We either besiege everything or we allow everything. This is first. Second, the proof that this is not correct, that you have every video about the convoys coming from the United Nations to reach those areas. Otherwise, how could they survive for years if they are under besiege? It's been years. They've been talking about the same narrative, reiterated for years now, but people are still alive. How could they live without food?
Targeting civilians in a war is a war crime. And just recently, the family of Marie Colvin, an American journalist, has launched a suit in the United States charging you and your government with deliberately targeting and killing her. You know Marie Colvin. She was a friend of mine.
Journalist,
Did your forces target Marie Colvin and her colleagues with an intention to kill her?
No, very simply. First of all, the army forces didn't know that Marie Colvin existed somewhere, because before that we hadn't known about Marie Colvin. So it's a war, and she came illegally to Syria. She worked with the terrorists, and because she came illegally, she's been responsible of everything that befall on her. This is first. Second,
she's responsible for her own death.
She came illegally to Syria. We can responsible of everyone within our country when he came legally to Syria. She came illegally, and she went with the terrorists. We didn't send her anywhere. We don't know anything about her.
As you know, that doesn't explain why missiles hit the house that she was in Homs.
No, nobody knows if she killed by missile, or which missile, and where did the missile came from, or how. No one has any evidence. This is just allegations, because it's a conflict area. It's a war. You know about crossfire. When you're caught in a crossfire somewhere, you cannot tell who killed who. So these are allegations. Second, we had hundreds of journalists came to Syria legally and illegally, and they covered for the terrorists, not for the government, and we didn't kill them. So why to single out this person in order to kill him? There's no logic. And this is second. Third, tens of journalists working for the government and support the government has been killed. Did we kill them? We didn't. So this is war. Have you heard about good war? I don't think anyone have heard about good war. It's a war. You always have casualties. You always have innocent people being killed by any means, and no one can tell how.
You see, the impression you give, Mr. President, is of a man who feels he bears no responsibility for the terrible things that are done in his name to the Syrian people. You have an air of, oh, well, it really doesn't matter.
Yeah. You only bear responsibility of the decision that you take. You don't bear responsibility of your decision that you didn't take.
But some of the decisions you've taken have resulted in the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people.
Like?
Attacking certain areas, launching campaigns, airstrikes, the use of certain weapons.
The only two decisions that we've taken since the beginning of the crisis to defend our country against the terrorists, and that's correct decision. The second one is to make dialogue with everyone. We made dialogue with everyone, including some terrorist groups who wanted to give up their armaments, and we made it. We were very flexible. We didn't take any decision to attack any area that doesn't include terrorists or where terrorists don't shell the other cities adjacent to them.
Do you
Never.
ever see pictures, photographs, videos of children, for example, in rebel-held areas? And I wonder if you have seen those photographs. What do you feel? Sorrow, regret, nothing?
My question, how could you verify that those children that you saw on the internet are in their area?
You see, there you go again, Mr. President. An answer like that simply reinforces people's view that you're evading responsibility, that actually you don't care for the people on the other side that your forces kill.
That question could be answered if you answer that question. How can you blame now Bush for the 1 million Iraqi dead since the war in Iraq in 2003?
I'm not talking about President Bush. I am here to ask you.
I'm talking about the principle now.
Yes.
It's about the principle, the same principle. So he attacked sovereign country while I defend my country. If you want to use one standard, is one thing. If you want to do a double standard, that's another thing.
You're still not giving me the impression that actually you care very much.
Well, I talk to American audience, so there must be analogy between the two things, because it's about the logic that you use to explain something. It's not only about my answer. He attacked sovereign country while we are defending our country. He killed Iraqi people on their land. We are defending mainly against terrorists who are coming from different places in that world. So this is our right. While to talk about the clean war where there's no casualty, no civilians, no innocent people to be killed, that doesn't exist. No one could make it. No war in the world.
Is this how you explain the war, for example, to your children at the breakfast table? I'm sure they're very interested.
I'm going to talk about the reality, about the fact. While to talk about children being killed, children of who, where, how? You are talking about propaganda and about media campaign and about sometimes fake pictures on the internet. We cannot talk about the fact. We have to talk about the facts. I cannot talk about allegations.
Have you ever cried about what's happened to Syria?
Crying doesn't mean you are a good man. And that doesn't mean you have a lot of passion. It's about the passion. It's within your heart. It's not about your eyes. It's not about the tears. This is first. Second, as a president, it's about what you're going to do, not about how you're going to feel. How are you going to protect the Syrians when you have bad incident, and you have it every day? Do you keep crying every day, or you keep working? My question is, how can I help whenever I have bad event or incident? I ask myself, how can I protect the other Syrians from having the same problem?
What are you going to do next? Are you just going to go on and on and on? You and your father have been in power for 46 years. Is that right?
No, it's not right, because he's the president. I'm another president. So it's not right. The description is not right at all. He was elected by the Syrian people. I was elected after he died. He didn't put me in any position. So you cannot connect. I'm president and he's president. I've been in power for 16 years. Not for 45 years. You've
been in power for 16 years. My question is, are you going to go on and on and on?
In my position, you have to ask the Syrian people. If they don't want me, I have to leave right away, today. If they want me, I have to stay. It depends on them. I mean, if I want to stay, again their will, I cannot produce, I cannot succeed. And I don't think I have the intention not to succeed.
How do you think history will remember you?
How I hope the history will remember me. I cannot foretell. I'm not a fortune teller. I hope that the history will see me as the man who protected his country from the terrorism and from the intervention and saved its sovereignty and the integrity of its land.
Because you know what the first draft of history is saying, that you're a brutal dictator. You're a man with blood on your hands, more blood on your hands than even on your father.
No, again, I will draw that example. If you have a doctor who cut the head because of a gangrene to save the patient, you don't say he's a brutal doctor. He's doing his job in order to save the rest of the body. So when you protect your country from the terrorists, and you kill terrorists, and you defeat terrorists, you're not brutal. You are a patriot. That's how you look at yourself, and that's how the people want to look at you.
And that's how you see yourself as a patriot?
I cannot be objective about looking at myself. The most important thing, how the Syrians look at me. That's the real and objective opinion, not my opinion. I cannot be objective about myself.